on at all. And when it comes to speaking, when Ben speaks, we listen. But Ben's got a personality which is Marmite, I believe, to some people. I personally like it. I like that outward brash cockiness in a fighter. But when Ben gets to the top, do you feel that he'll have the eyes on him because of his fighting ability, or maybe because, like the Mayweather effect, the Hammond effect, people will kind of want to see him get beaten because of that cockiness?
Yeah, I think both. And I say this to Ben the whole time, and he already understands it. Whether they're tuning in to see you win or tuning in to see you lose, it doesn't really matter. As long as they're tuning in and paying their money to watch you, it doesn't really matter. And Floyd Mayweather, like you said, is the epitome of that. But one thing you have to make sure, which I don't have any concerns with Ben, is that you can be this brash, cocky character. Of course you can, but fundamentally you've got to back it up in the ring, right? Like you can't to kind of talk the talk without walking the walk. So I believe that regardless of what he does outside of the ring, there are going to be people that want to tune in to watch him fight because his style is so entertaining. It's such an engaged, like I'm not, as I always refer back to the debut, but I honestly can't think of a debut that we've seen that's remotely like the performance that he put on. I think he's such an entertaining fighter to watch. So regardless of what he's doing outside the ring, whether people love him or hate him, they're still going to be tuning in. But obviously there's this kind of Marmite factor about him outside of the ring where he's this brash, cocky character, which I think is only going to accentuate and exaggerate the type of draw that he can be because of his fighting style, if that makes sense. So it's going to be a bit of both. But as you say, Naz there is another one. These kind of controversial characters, for better or worse, people are always looking to tune in and watch them. So I think Ben's very much going to be one of those guys, and I'm looking forward to the journey.
We might have thought on this card we might be tuning in to watch to see Frazer Clarke too, but that isn't the case. There is the potential that Frazer now steps in to take on Fabio Wardley for the British heavyweight title. What is the current status with Frazer?
So yeah, the hope was to have Frazer on this card because again it's Frazer's local area, but obviously with the cut that he got in the Dinu fight from the head clash, it just made that time frame quite unrealistic, which is a real shame, to be honest. He was ordered to fight Fabio, which is fantastic. Now we've actually got a meeting tomorrow as a team to kind of go through a few bits. He had signed to fight on June 10th, and that fight was signed before the board announced and mandated him to fight Fabio. So if you ask Frazer, he's ready to go into that fight tomorrow, and he is ready to go into that fight tomorrow from this, like, just in terms of his skill set against Wardley. I believe he beats him very easily. If you're asking me, again, going back to that point I made about trying to mitigate all risks, Frazer's done more than 4 rounds once in his pro career so far. So again, I believe he beats Wardley easily inside of 5 or 6 rounds. But if Wardley doesn't go away as easy as he hopes, I don't want Frazer to then be in 8, 9, 10, 11 rounds in waters that he hasn't been in yet, where potentially you get yourself into sticky situations. And so as a team, I think we would like to see Frazer have a fight where he can get some proper championship style rounds in him, 8, 9, 10 rounds. And then we would look to fight Wardley after that. But the reality is it's a tough one to predict at the moment because we have to see where the purse bids go on May 10th, because if Boxer are able to win that purse bid, then that time frame becomes a bit easier. If Matchroom win it, then look, I still think, if Eddie's been talking about putting on stadium shows and stuff, like I've been involved in seeing how these stadium shows are put on, it takes a lot longer than you anticipate. So I'm not too sure on those time frames anyway. We'll have to just wait and see. But yeah, Frazer is going to fight Fabio by September 23rd. That's the reality of the situation. That's what he's been ordered to do. So that is going to happen. We just have to see how it plays out with purse bids and then see exactly where that is going to fall. And as I said, we're going to sit down as a team tomorrow and have a meeting about that.
Were you surprised that the fight was ordered between the two?
I don't think so because I know that David Adelaide came out and was quite vocal about how he felt like he'd been hard done by. And he's had, I think, 10 fights, 11 fights, whatever it is. But I don't think, so really, from what I could see, in my opinion, so with Wardley being the champion, who were the realistic options to get mandated? I think it was probably Adelaide, Dakers, or Frazer. Those are the 3 kind of big names that I think were probably in line. And Adelaide and Dakers with all due respect, I don't know that their resumes necessarily provide that much more evidence that they should be the ones that are mandated over Frazer. Like I think Bogdan Dinu, although Frazer dealt with him quite straightforwardly, is possibly a better, as good a name as any of the names that Adelaide or Dacres have got. So, I'm not surprised in that regard, to be honest. I know he's only had 6 fights, but again, he's coming off a big amateur pedigree. He's an Olympic bronze medalist. I think that probably does factor into the board's decision as well. Our job as management is to try and not so much lobby the boards, but to try and put our fighters forward to be mandated for the shot. Frazer, we've always had the plan for Frazer to fight for the British title inside of 10 fights. So I've obviously been speaking to the board, speaking to Robert Smith, trying to get, put Frazer at the front of that queue, because that's in the best interest of our fighter. I don't know who Dacres has got around him that's doing that, or Adelaide. You'd have to ask them, but I think potentially that, we have made a case for Frazer to be mandated and made the mandatory challenger, which potentially went somewhere as well. But I do just think, like, objectively, he's more than a valid fighter to be mandated, particularly over those two. So no, not really surprised, to be honest. I thought it was the correct call.
If the fight doesn't happen for whatever reason, what do you feel the backlash will be if Frazer doesn't fight for the British title next? And do you think it's warranted if there is backlash, or fair if there is, if Frazer didn't take the fight?
There's always going to be backlash, like that. You can't do anything in this game without the fans criticizing you, and I understand that's not a problem. If Frazer doesn't, I believe that, like, whichever party wins the purse bids, whether it's Matchroom, whether it's Boxer, whoever, or even somebody else who could come in and try and make a bid for it, I believe that Frazer fights Fabio between September and December of this year. If it's not next, it's because, like I said, we've got an agreement to fight on June 10th as it stands, and then you have to work out scheduling and stuff. So if it's not next, there will be a wave of backlash inevitably, because people will think that he's ducking or that he doesn't want to fight and blah, 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 which is fine. But he is going to fight Fabio between September and December of this year. And whether he has 1 fight before it, 2 fights before it, or no fights before it, we have to see how the cards fall. But he might receive a wave of criticism if it's not next. But again, I can only promise people that he's going to fight him this year, and it's going to be a massive fight, and he's going to win. And then I think there's huge domestic fights on Sky for Frazer at heavyweight. I don't know, just the 2 names that I mentioned there would be great fights for him. Jamie TKV would be a great fight for him when he's got a few more wins under his belt. There's huge fights to be made domestically there, so I'm just excited to get the Wardley fight done, get Frazer British champion, and then we can look at some really, really good nights heading into next year.
Who's on the short list for June 10th?
We've got a name, but we're not in a position. I think we're not in a position to kind of announce that yet. So we'll have to. You have to watch this space on that. There's a few things at play. So, like I said, we'll know more in the next couple of weeks probably.